Welcome here. We're SpeakuP Monday, Destination Indonesia, episode number 452. Now, you may recognize we are in a different location in Tropical Nomad. That is true. Do not adjust your TV set or whatever you're looking on. Basically, they're building a new space, so we're going to be here temporarily. Now, that doesn't interrupt the fact that we have an incredible show tonight. As for most of you who are here in the audience, property tokenization is a topic, well, the real world asset associated is a huge topic. What we've realized is that in Indonesia, it is very few companies which are actually, let's say, anywhere near legal in what they're doing. They're not illegal, but I would say they're quite far away from legal. Indonesia has developed a sandbox, an environment to basically place some of their, how would you call it, Rob? Some of their most...
It's a testing bed. So they invite companies to participate, and then they allow you to test the business model under their supervision.
Beautiful. That worked pretty well. I was waiting for you, but you came through in the end. So that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. Very important topic. So Robert, his company GORO, that we're going to go into in a moment. But just before we start, so my name is Robert Ian Bonnick, otherwise known as the Gateway to Indonesia and Australia. So this is episode number 452, as I mentioned. Now, SpeakuP Monday is about three things. Number one, it's about people inspire people. Number two is unity in diversity, which is the motto of Indonesia. And number three is it's all about entrepreneurship and social impact. So these three elements are present within every single show that we do and will do. So I just want to thank you for being part of it. And as I mentioned, we're a gateway to Indonesia for foreign and local companies that want to either enter Indonesia or companies that want to expand throughout Indonesia. So let's get tonight's episode started. So Robert, actually I've got a little intro here, haven't I?
Very fancy.
There you go. That's funny. So, as you mentioned, GORO are the first to be admitted into the regulatory sandbox for property tokenization in Indonesia. And as I mentioned, despite much conjecture and posturing, there has been no government-endorsed platform or project which has basically had a license, even temporary or permanent, for property tokenization here in Indonesia. Now, Robert has been on the show already, so this is a follow-up to the show we did some time ago. And, you know, what I love is that your platform now has over 100,000 users. And of those 100,000 users, 99% plus are Indonesian. So what you're providing is not only an opportunity for Indonesians to get involved in the property market and gain from it, but also a way for Indonesia, you know, for the outside looking in to have, you know, a solid platform that people can invest in. So we're talking about increasing confidence as well in Indonesia, which I think is very powerful. Now, some of the takeaways tonight, we have many, but investing, how property tokenization democratizes real estate investment. Number two is the rule or the role of regulation and why government endorsement is crucial for tokenization success. And number three, the future of tokenization here in Indonesia. What tokenization can hold for Indonesia's future. Now over here I have a list of about 10 questions to get us started. But look, let's start with you, Rob. So can you explain maybe a little bit about your personal background and what brought you to doing this in the first place, for thinking about ideating, co-founding this amazing platform called GORO?
Sure. Thank you very much for having me on, and thanks for all coming out here despite the poor weather, let's call it that way. Yeah. So I'm originally from the Netherlands, but I moved to the UK for my studies, where I started my first company, which was a tailoring business. And this is actually one of the products. So I was able to sell the company about 10 years ago. I then moved to Singapore. And about 8 years ago, on a trip with my friends on a trip to Bali with my friends, I was quite curious to understand the real estate market. So I was just wondering, how much is it to buy a property here, and what's the yield on them? And that's kind of how I got involved in the Airbnb arbitrage. So I used to rent properties for 2-3 years and I sublet them. But quite quickly, my friends and family were asking if they could co-invest or if I could advise them how to get into the Bali real estate market. So I was thinking, hey, is there a bigger problem that needs to be solved? And this was all just before COVID started. So super excited, let's do fractional property. I started to research this from Singapore, and then obviously everything got shut down. But as COVID came to an end, I saw the interest coming back, and I was a firm believer that the world would go back to normal. And I was like, I think now it's the time to do this. So I resigned from my day job in Singapore, met my co-founder who is based in Jakarta, and we started building GORO about 2.5 years ago now. And it's been live for about 2 years.
Beautiful. So, okay, maybe, as I mentioned, tonight's going to be quite heavy in terms of facts and data and numbers and so on. So let's just get started. So for those people here, we have a gentleman who's here in the audience. So what is property tokenization and why is it important?
Well, tokenization in general is basically representing someone's ownership or interest in the form of a token on the blockchain. So it's basically, I call it a puzzle piece. It's for them to understand what they own or what it represents. So basically, it could be like a share, but instead it's on a public ledger that's available to anyone.
Great. And as you mentioned, or as I think I mentioned in the opening, one of the 165 million. So if you can let people know why that's important, then also the middle class and why there's a market for it, that would be great.
I think there's two, we're solving a problem for the domestic market, first of all. There's 165 million Indonesians today that have never invested. So there's about 10 million equity or stock investors. There's about 20 million crypto investors, which is quite an interesting statistic because it's double to the stock market investors. But there's still 165 million Indonesians that are yet to make that first investment. And obviously, Prabowo has set a very ambitious target to let the economy grow at 8% every year. So there will be a lot of people coming online and wanting to invest. We've obviously seen a trend over the last year where banks are helping the unbanked become banked, and we feel that the next step is helping these people invest. So that's on the domestic side. So we're helping these people make their first investment, making an asset class that is very easy to understand, because regardless of your background, everyone has a roof over their head. So for them, it's very easy to understand that property has a value, generally goes up in value, the rental income, and it's tangible. But it's very inaccessible to these people. So with GORO, where anyone can invest from 10,000 rupiah or $1, is very accessible. Now that's on the domestic market. If we look at the foreign market, property in Bali is still relatively cheap, but has also become quite expensive. The average property is now, $250,000, but the average investor is only willing to invest $100,000 or $150,000. So there's a massive gap on that side, on that space as well.
So you're saying, just so everybody gets it, so what you're saying is that the average property is 250K, but what people are actually prepared to invest is 100 to 150K less than that amount. All right, which then leaves the space for the market of...
Yeah, so there's a massive opportunity for GORO as well to serve that audience. And people have a massive appetite to invest in Bali, but for them to just wire $200,000 in an off-plan project is not always ideal for them. So we believe that we're that kind of stepping stone for them to dip their toes in the water. They can start from as little as $1, although most foreigners invest a lot more, but it gives them an opportunity to participate and see if they like the returns. They can invest in different type of properties in different areas of Bali, including Jakarta. And if they're then ready to buy, they could simply withdraw these returns and actually buy a property. Although that doesn't really happen. Most people just keep investing because it's easy.
45 countries. What's the significance of that?
Well, first of all, we wanted to solve a problem for the domestic market because I think that's where we can make a real impact. But quite quickly, we had interest from other nations, or people from other markets wanting to come on board. So we have about 1,000 people in Singapore, about 1,000 people in Australia, and total 45 countries globally that invest. I was just checking the website. We have about 800 people on the website right now buying tokens. So that's super exciting.
Beautiful. So we're going to get into some of the technical stuff soon, but I'm going to head to these questions. So what is property tokenization? We've got that. Why do we need tokenization? I think we've just covered that one. Now, what positive impact does property tokenization / GORO make?
Generally, real estate has always been for the fortunate, right? For the wealthy people that buy up all the real estate. We even see this in Europe, right? All the high-yielding properties are bought up by the wealthy people. So that leaves out massive amounts of people that simply can't access this. So through tokenization, we allow anyone to participate in a very simple asset class. Indonesia obviously also has a relatively low financial literacy. So also, hopefully, helping these people to increase their financial literacy through property investing, and then obviously they can go on to invest in crypto and stocks as they go.
So this thing, which tonight is really about, this regulation, right? So not related, but kind of related. People kind of know more about crypto happening now, know a little bit more about blockchain, and understand that ETFs, all these things coming in, that regulation is a way for people to feel more safe, more comfortable, that they're going to, if they invest money, there's a certain process that goes into it. And if they want to get their money back, or if there's a bad actor, they can get their money back. There's a process by which their money isn't lost.
Yeah.
So then when it comes to property tokenization in Indonesia, why is regulation important, and what pain point or pain points does it solve outside of what I've just said?
For me personally, our users deserve that peace of mind knowing that someone has vetted the business, has vetted the processes that we follow. Because even in a country like Indonesia with low financial literacy, most people actually know who the regulator is. They don't really know what the purpose of the regulator is, but they know that if that logo is on the website, then it must be a trustworthy business. So when we started the business about 2.5 years ago, we tried to get regulated back then, but there was no options for this. It didn't exist. And the way the regulator works is that they have different type of boxes. And our business did not fit into any of these boxes. So then you go into the gray zone. So you're a legal business, but they're not recognized by the regulator. So obviously, as we started to grow, the number one question always was, are you guys regulated? So we always had to tell them, no, we're not, because there is no regulation. So right away, you're on the back foot. So people are less likely to invest. They will do a lot more research. And now that we are in this OJK sandbox, that these questions have completely disappeared. So it's very welcoming change.
OJK. So we want to keep people with us, as many as we can. So when we say OJK, I know what it means. Maybe a lot of people here know what it means, but most probably don't know what it means. So what is OJK, and what is the importance and significance here in Indonesia?
OJK or OJK is the Indonesian financial regulator. For people from Singapore, it's the MAS, and in the US is the SEC. So this governing body oversees all the financial instruments. And I think you brought up a topic around crypto. Crypto used to be under BABAPT, which is the commodities regulator in Indonesia, and recently has been handed over to OJK. So they're now going to oversee the crypto trading as well. Great.
So the regulator here, right, which is really important. So, okay, a few more questions before we go to the audience. So, okay, one question that I've been asked multiple times when we're announcing that you're coming back is that, hey, Rob, I've got a property to tokenize. Can you put me in touch with Rob GORO, right? Now, for those people here who ask me, I'm not going to embarrass you or call you out. I'm going to look you in the eye and say, why did you ask me? So here's the thing. How do you source your properties, and what kind of level of scrutiny do you apply to that process that's going to help to answer a lot of people's questions here?
For us, we look at it from two angles. You can either solve a problem for the developer to help them sell more properties in the form of fractions or tokens, or you actually represent the users and make sure that they get a sound investment product to invest in. So we made that decision. We actually looked at both angles, and we realized the developer side is not ideal, really. So we said, let's go for the user side. Let's make sure that we make this more accessible and credible as a product. So the way we look at our properties is from a yield perspective. So we always aim that our properties deliver between 11 and 12% net rental yield. So then we can work backwards.
Per 11-12% per
net per year.
Per year.
So we pay 10% tax, so everything is clear. There is no 50% declaration on the leasehold. It goes full value because we get scrutinized by the government. OJK will ask for this documentation and ask, where's your tax payment? Or if you're declaring half value on paper, your your tax man will ask you at the end of the year, why do you have a gap in your balance sheet, right? So from the beginning, we've always played by the book. It's been very clear. So we take the 12% net rental yield, and then you can simply work backwards. You know the tax, you know your OTA fees, you know your operating cost, and that's how we basically evaluate properties. So that's purely from a commercial side. Then we do a lot of in-house due diligence as well. So you do the land checks in-house. We check IMBs, PBGs, SLFs. So we do all these checks in-house, and only then when we have built sufficient conviction, we actually make an offer, and that's how we start. But it also includes historical rental yield. We look at forecasting. We have first-party data that we collect for our own management. We use second-party data from agencies that we're quite friendly with, and then we use third-party data to layer that on top. We look at comparables, future bookings. So there's a lot of data that goes into it. But that's also the beauty of our business as we scale, is that we can rely on that data and we can make decisions super quick.
All right, so that's one side of it, right? This is a multi-dimensional puzzle that people asking me want to solve, right? So, but the other part of it is, okay, if I'm a developer, right? So someone or a platform like GORO can be really good for me, because if I'm a developer, what I want to do is I want to lock in certainty. I want to develop, and I want to make sure that I get the income to cover all of the expenses. In other words, I can sell the property at a lot more money than I invested, right? A platform like yours, in theory, is really good, because I can then create a property which is already pre-sold to you, right? So if I ask you then, if that's the case, then how does a developer out there create a property that is then pre-sold to you, and how does that work?
We look at about 50 to 60 properties every single week. It's quite an interesting process, because we can make offers pretty quickly based on all the data that we have. Properties are often a little bit overpriced in the market as well. So we tend to make offers pretty quickly, or we float valuations. But often they laugh at us, they reject us, and then a few weeks later they all come back. We have seen properties go at 40, 50% below asking price. But any developer that's looking to sell, you can always submit them to us through, we have a sister company called We Buy Any Villas. You may have seen the ads on the internet, or you can submit them directly to us through our website, and we'll be happy to take a look at it. But it always goes back to, is this the right investment for our users? If we can't build enough conviction that this will give the returns that our users expect, we will actually pass on the property.
All right, one last question on this, because I remember our last interview. Remember, Robbie? So what it is so you have a specific process on, once the developer has gone through these hoops, you have a specific process to pay them. And I think it was over a period of months. And you were saying that if more tokens are sold, then there's a way that becomes even more advantageous to the developer who created the properties for you. Yeah. Can you explain that a little bit? Good luck, by the way. Good luck. You're doing well, Robbie.
It's not like we sit on millions of dollars of cash. Yeah, some people come to us and they think that we are super wealthy and we can just buy whatever we see.
They are. Sorry, I never said that. I did.
In billions of rupiah, yes, not billions of dollars, unfortunately, yet. So we generally seek for payment terms from the seller, but it's a guaranteed transaction. We will actually cover if there's a gap within the payment terms, GORO will actually cover it. But generally, we pay a property. The quickest we've sold a property was 2 weeks, so it's 5 billion in 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Yes.
Sold a property.
So and generally we have a couple thousand people investing in the same property. So generally we go to these sellers and we agree on these payment terms. We start selling it in tokens, but they already know, the seller already knows that property is officially sold, because the payment terms are well defined in the leasehold agreement.
Beautiful. All right, now I'm going to go back to this little sheet of paper. Oh, mate, we're going through these questions pretty well. My English is shocking. Okay. Is it my native tongue? I know. Too long here. Mamma mia. All right. So, okay, cool. So, secondary market. Yeah. So why does GORO not have a secondary market? I thought you did. Yeah, secondary market. Talk about it.
Well, we're basically the secondary market ourselves. We buy back So we firmly believe in a centralized model where we do the due diligence on behalf of the user. Indonesia is still a bit of the wild, wild west. So if anyone can just launch a property without due diligence, there's going to be a lot of scams out there. So that's why we actually take the forefront and we actually do the due diligence on behalf of the user. But on the secondary market, we've seen...
You're good. Yeah. By the way, sorry, questions will come in about 5 minutes. So if you're like this man over here, can't wait for the questions, 5 minutes, brother. That's it. All good.
We've seen a lot of companies in different parts of the world launch secondary markets, but there's hardly any liquidity. So what we see as a result is that people sell with a massive haircut or at a massive loss just to get their money out. And that doesn't really help to build your profile as an investment company, right? People are there to make returns. If they have to sell at a loss, what's the point of investing, right? So that's why we said, you know what? Let's just offer that liquidity to our users. If they invest, and especially in Indonesia, a lot of Indonesians invest what is so-called their hot money, which is the money they live off day by day. A lot of Indonesians would just invest all the money they have. And then the next day they realize that they have to pay for their kids' tuition, or they have to pay their insurance or their rent, and then they're stuck. So if we don't offer liquidity, we would never be able to grow. So that's why we offer these people a buyback. So they simply buy back at the same, we buy back from them at the same value that they invested in. But generally our property sells so quick that by the time a sold out property token gets sold back to us, we simply resell it within seconds. So there is no real challenges for us as a business there, luckily. But it does give people the liquidity in case they need out. They have that option to liquidate it.
Now, a story that you told me, not a story, a use case, which made me smile, right? About the ones who left the platform, and then you found out why are you leaving the platform for, and they gave you a certain answer. Tell that one. I think it's very powerful.
So we always follow up with our users why they sell tokens, because we're generally just interested to learn what makes them move. So in the last few weeks, you can probably guess that a lot of people sell tokens to put it into crypto. But we also know that once crypto slows down a little bit, the hype, people will come back again. But we recently had a user, she'd been around for about a year, and she liquidated all her tokens, and we called her and said, hey, what happened? Like, you made 50 plus transactions on the platform, you built a very diversified portfolio, and now you liquidated everything in one go. And she goes, I've been trying to buy a house, but I've been unable to do so. But by investing in GORO, I was able to save enough money to pay for a down payment. So obviously, initially I was a bit disappointed that she left the platform, but then hearing the story that she was using the proceeds to buy a home, that's yeah, very, very warming, yeah.
Beautiful story. OJK. So there are people here. I think there's what, 40 companies in that sandbox or trying to get into that sandbox. 4.
And we own 2 there's 4 licenses and we own 2.
Cool. 4 licenses and you own 2 at this point.
Yes.
Right. Okay. One question I get asked is, what was it like it take to go through this process? Because at the end of the day, you know, you're not going to be the only one, right? In a year's time, 2 years' time, 3 years' time, there's probably going to be a lot of different companies out there with licenses, if I can call it that for the sake of this conversation, be they temporary ones. So the question then is that what was it like working with OJK, and is there anything that you would do differently or would advise those people here which have projects that maybe are looking to get into that sandbox and basically replicate the success that you've had?
So let me introduce the Sandbox first. Let me just explain what that is. So it's basically, it's a 1-year testing ground where companies can enter, and they obviously OJK will scrutinize your business model. They will understand the challenges. But if they see sufficient innovation as well, they would allow you into the Sandbox, which is a 1-year program where they'll set you some targets and they will also monitor your progress. And then eventually the goal is obviously that you graduate. But there's a lot of targets that need to be met. And then once you graduate, you get a permanent license. So the way I describe it is like the Sandbox is like a tourist visa in Bali. You get to enjoy all the best parts of Bali, but after 30 days or 60 days, you need to leave. Once you graduate, you would then get the the passport. You get the Indonesian passport. You can stay there permanently. So that Sandbox was actually the previous Sandbox closed. It was called the IKD. It was closed in October last year because they reshuffled the leadership. They restructured all the companies in there. A lot of them graduated. Some were also removed. They lost their licenses. So being in the Sandbox is not a given. Yeah, it's not like, oh, you're in there, you're going to graduate. It's a lot of hard work. Our lawyers are very very thankful. Yeah. They keep sending us invoices. A lot, yeah.
Who would like to be one of the service providers? Was it 8 months, 10 months of just, yeah, here's another invoice. Oh, look, here's another invoice.
And it's a bit of a trap, yeah. Once you're in, you can't really say, I don't want to spend more money on legal fees. They just keep piling up. Luckily, the first person that we gave equity to in our company was a capital markets lawyer who used to work for the #1 law firm in the country. So that guy understood very well how the regulatory framework works, and he's been a tremendous help for us. What was the second?
All right, so yeah, so I was going to say you're avoiding the question, but you forgot. It's okay. What was it like? Is it like working with OJK? And is there anything you do differently or advise those projects which are trying to get into the Sandbox?
Would you like to guess how many pages our application was?
Well, I know, because I know. But somebody else guess. How many pages was the application? Someone throw out a number. 436. He knew already. He spoiled it. God dang. How many pages?
Pretty close, actually. It was about 500 pages. And this is in Indonesian, obviously. There's no English there. So very lengthy preparation process, and then you need to apply to them, and then you get an initial meeting, and then you get to present your business. And that's basically where the process starts. They then initially evaluate your business. It's literally yes or no, and then you go from there. Once they like it, you go to the next step, and it's a bunch of meetings. They will scrutinize everything you do, your shareholding, your company incorporation. There's audits on everything. There is how you buy properties in our case, how we tokenize the properties, how we offer the liquidity, the team. So there's a lot of checks. The whole process took about 5 months from the time that we applied, but the preparation of the documentation took 4 or 5 months as well, yeah? So about a year all in all.
So almost about a year. Okay, that's answered a very important question which some people had earlier on. They're looking at me going like, a year? No way! Yeah, there you go.
I think just touching on your point earlier about crypto being moved to OJK, they released their roadmap for the next till 2030. It was released back in June, and actually describes what OJK wants to do in the tokenization and crypto space, and where their focus is on. So if you're interested in reading this, I would highly recommend. You can find it on the OJK website. Just Google Translate it, and then you can see what their goal is.
All right, we're going to go to questions. So the way we're going to do this is that, just raise your hands. Thank you. Just behind you. He stood behind you on purpose. I remember last week there was a guy saying, why was that not the first question? I'm like, because you were far away from the microphone. This time, it's not the same person, but they're standing behind where the microphone lives. It's like, I will be the first question. Nice move. It's all right. It's all right. It's all good. So just raise your hand. Now, before you go there, realize this. Beautiful. There's a secondary camera that will swivel, and it means that you will be on camera. So if you do not want to be on camera when you're asking your question, don't ask the question. Just wait till afterwards, or get the guy next to you or lady next to you, ask this for me, right? Either way, that's what will happen. But just wait. You're okay. So for those of you tuning in, because we're live on Instagram Live, Facebook Live, and YouTube Live. So right now you're watching episode 452. This is Speak Up Monday. Tonight is all about property tokenization in Indonesia, and we have the first company admitted into the regulatory sandbox for property tokenization here in Indonesia. The company's called GORO, and we're talking to co-founder Robert Hoving, and now I'll probably pronounced that incorrectly, but you know the story. Hoving, potatoes. And now we're going to questions. So over to you. Yeah.
So are you owning all your properties? Because in some other tokenizations, like I'm sure you know Lofty, right? So they don't really own it. They just deposit the deeds somewhere. So you own all the properties, or is a mixed model?
Yeah, so if we look at the Lofty model, we initially explored this as well. The issue with this is that you're creating endless amounts of PTPMAs in this case, with a 10 billion rupiah paid up capital. And I saw recently that they're even trying to change this now, where property is excluded from the paid up capital, so it'll be even more challenging to reach this. And the government, I know most people here sign side letters waiving this, they will eventually pay, but the government is really cracking down on this. So that model will never scale unless you just want to buy properties over 10 billion.
Yes.
So we don't follow this model, no.
Okay, and could you compare yourself with Sabai systems? Sabai is the one that's doing something similar in Phuket. I don't know if you know about them. Okay, if you don't know, then fine. So basically do it different in a Lofty because the regulations just don't support that model. All right, thanks.
Okay.
Sabai.
So next question.
Sabai.
Before we go that way, any questions over here? No. Then we'll go to my brother. Yep, Krishna first, and then Dominic. Yeah.
Hi, yeah, I'm Krishna. So I really like the GORO model. So what I do every month is I invest a certain amount of money in the Indonesian stock market and then in the US stock market. And I've now put GORO as part of my monthly contribution. So I have two questions. The first one, is that how you suggest investors to do it? Like, let's say an employee puts in $1 million a month. And the second question, like, what would be like the risks for GORO, right? Because every investment has a risk. If a second COVID happens, would that impact GORO? Like, I would love to know your answers for that.
So the first question is more around frequently investing, right?
Yeah.
That's actually a great topic that we're currently discussing in-house, because the core focus for the business was to focus top of funnel, get as many new leads as possible. Why? Because the product kind of works by itself. We see people make as many as over 1,000 transactions. We have a channel called Token War on Telegram. I don't know if you've seen this, where tokens that are properties that have are sold out, that become available, people actually get a notification.
Oh, War GORO.
Token War.
I'm on the WhatsApp thread. So
okay, yeah, it's also there. Yeah, so there's 22,000 people now in this group. But yeah, we're looking more at how can we increase the frequency that people invest in line with payday, for example. Today is rental yield distribution day, so we have thousands of people coming to the website and buy more tokens. So great question. We haven't figured it out yet, but it's something we're working on. The second question around risk. Obviously, every business has risk. We try to de-risk ourselves as much as we can. So we have very comprehensive insurance on all the properties for earthquakes, tsunamis, volcano eruptions, whatever you can think of. But if there was another COVID case that shuts down the island, that would definitely impact the rental yield. But as most of you will know that we're here during COVID, you could actually still make decent-ish returns on your properties. But obviously, it'll be much lower than we deliver right now. If you're asking about what happens if people want to withdraw all at the same time, it's still asset-backed, right? So there's still a property behind it that could be liquidated to then give back the proceeds to the investors.
Right. Like, would you see like a lower percentage rental yield over time? Is that what would happen, or?
So if you look, the reason why I started to invest in Bali about 8 years ago, because it's always busy here. There's no real like high. I mean, there is high season and low season, but it's not like in a skiing resort, right? Where in the summer there's nothing to do, right? So Bali is always pretty busy. You can always have a pretty good occupancy of 80 to 90%. But obviously in the summer you see slightly higher returns. Christmas and New Year used to be one of the best weeks of the year. It's come down a lot actually. A lot of properties are completely vacant for the next few weeks. So it's an interesting time for the market. But yeah, our yields do fluctuate. Nothing is guaranteed. I would highly question businesses that give guarantees, because where did they get the money from? So yeah, it does fluctuate. But you can see this on the website. Yeah, we're very transparent. We show you the rental yield as it progresses over time. You'll see the ups and downs. But overall, we have delivered about 11% net rental yield since we started about 2 years ago.
Over which period of time? 11% per month, per year? What?
11% net rental yield per year.
If it was per month, it'd be too good to be true.
Listen,
yeah.
I just want people to be clear, right? So they don't say, but Rob, did he say?
And so this is net, yeah. This is post all OTA fees, management fees, full tax. So this is clean everything has been paid. Yeah.
All right, Krishna. Now, before you hand over to my brother there and to Bonnick, your business here in Bali, what is it? Now, simple reason, this man I love, he's been on the show 3 or 4 times probably, an incredible person. Please, plug your business, my brother.
Family business. We've been open for 24 years. It's called Serenity Eco Guest House. I know that property in Bali has never lost money. My parents bought our land on this street for 20 million for 100 meters squared. Now you know how much is 1 ara here in Canggu. So it's one of the best investments my family has made. And it will probably secure my future generations too. So land is pretty good for Bali. So that's good.
Thank you, brother. Krishna Chepa. So just you, and then we'll come to you, Bonnick. Over to you, brother. Yeah.
Thanks. I'm just curious, are you buying the properties leasehold or freehold? I'm guessing leasehold. And in that case, like, how do you encourage your investors to think about it? Because obviously, even though they're getting 10, 11, 12% rental yield, if you hold the property for 30 years, it's worthless. You're not getting your capital back, right? So how do you encourage them to think about that, and how do you view that?
So in Bali, thus far, we've bought 21 properties so far. 15 of them in Bali, they're all leaseholds. In Jakarta, we own Haji Base, so they're strata title apartments. Here in Bali, it's a change of mindset. It's more around the rental yield that you pay, that you receive, instead of capital appreciation. We also don't hold the property for 25 or 30 years. We buy them, and then we plan to sell them in about 4 or 5 years from the time of acquisition. Hopefully the market will continue to grow, so there will be a perhaps small amount of appreciation, but I always sell it as a bonus. You should come to GORO and expect about 10, 11% net rental yield per year. So in 5 years, you've done about 50% return on your money. If you get any appreciation on top, that's a bonus, but it's not an appreciation play.
But do you tell them to expect depreciation, or you think the market will go up enough that even though the lease is depreciating, they'll still get their capital back?
It could be a depreciating asset, yeah. I mean, obviously a leasehold technically on paper is a depreciating asset. That's why the banks don't give any financing on this. But if you buy at the right time and you sell at the right time, there is an opportunity to at least make some returns on it. But the users are aware of this, yeah. There is no guarantees. We don't promise any returns. There's nothing is guaranteed, yeah.
Got it. Thanks.
Thank you. Just pass it forward to Bonnick. Yeah, just Bonnick behind you, brother. Yeah. Okay.
Hi. The way I understand your business, most of your assets are in Bali, right?
Yeah.
So it's basically a tourism business. And so the risk is associated with tourism, global trends, Bali, tourism, volcanoes, COVID, and whatnot. But it's also related to the management company. So, if you have very capable people who run it smoothly and, efficiently, you have better returns. If not, so how do you sort of add your scrutiny and your are you the manager? Are you working with other managers, or how does that work? And second question, it's all about regulation is all about consumer protection, right? So at the moment we sell the tokens, you buy them back. I mean, in Bank Indonesia, you have a guaranteed savings performance. It's sort of up to 100 million. It's guaranteed. You have more, you lose it. Obviously, there's no guarantee in your business model, right?
So we've got a little visitor here.
Yeah, we have dogs, we have cats. It's Bali, people. It's a beautiful thing.
On your first question around the management, so initially we only relied on third-party management companies, but we realized that we're not always aligned on the outcome. So that's why we actually established our own management company. So generally because we would buy existing properties, sometimes they're managed by some of the bigger brands on the island. And if we're happy with the returns, and if we're happy with the future bookings, then we generally just keep it with them. But we always have the opportunity to take it back and do it in-house. Because at the end of the day, we need to protect the 110,000 people that have invested money with us. So it's always around protecting the users. So yeah, we either use a third-party management or we use our own team. And we've been doing this, I mean, I've personally been doing this for 8 years. So I've brought over some of my team that I previously had for my company into this organization. The second...
But that obviously is not regulated, right? So
property management is not a regulated business.
So it cannot be regulated under your Sandbox story. But it's sort of the biggest risk, one of the biggest risks besides tourism.
Yeah. Obviously, the government scrutinizes everything. So that comes also to your second question. Everything that we do has been checked. I mean, there's a reason why we submitted 500 pages. We currently have a dedicated person in the team that only creates SOPs. So they'll sit down with every single person in the office and understand what do you do on a day-to-day basis and how do you deal with issues. So we're documenting every single thing that we can do because it's part of the regulatory process. So it's not necessarily an easy process. It's very cumbersome, a lot of time and money, but I still feel that our users deserve that peace of mind. On your second question around capital requirements, we actually follow the banking rules where companies or the banks need at least have 8% in liquidity. So we follow the same rules. But we're again working closely with OJK to understand how do they want to see us perform. And then we work together on creating something that works for both parties.
But if you have a run, there is no mechanism to protect the investors. Because basically there is no secondary market, so you're the only one who is going to buy it. And sorry, too bad, no money. Goodbye.
The beauty is that it's still asset-backed, right? There's still a property. Right. So we could still liquidate the property and then give the proceeds back to the users, which I think is one of the best parts of real estate. It's an asset-backed token in this case. If there was a bank run, your bank is also not going to give you the money, right? So let's be realistic.
100 million.
Well, let's see if it really happens, right? So I think if you put it in a grand scheme of things, most companies don't offer liquidity. We do. And if there was an issue, we adhere to the government standards as part of the OJK Sandbox.
Thank you. Appreciate it. So, Vasily, you have probably a suite of questions. Just choose the two.
No, I won't. Sorry.
Okay.
Okay, first a very simple question from crypto guy. So the token price is fixed, right?
Yeah.
So it cannot go up, it cannot go out.
Not at present, no.
Okay.
Because we don't want to be a speculative platform. If you look at the spectrum of savings to investing, we're more on the saving side. We want to be a passive income platform. We don't want to have a speculative token because there's an issue with REITs, for example. The value of a REIT can be highly out of sync with the actual price of the property because of the trading activity.
And the second question is also from the management perspective. What if the property, anything can happen, especially in the weather like this, the roof may collapse, hopefully not, but the pool can get broken, like whatever, like who is carrying the risks of maintenance and ongoing, keep it up to high standards, because when it's getting old, it's getting not so popular, bad reviews going to profits going down and so far and so on.
You should speak to my team. They'll give you a very interesting answer. I'm pretty demanding with my team. I expect a very high standard of the quality of our properties. So we have an in-house engineering team as well. So we are constantly doing preventative maintenance to keep the property in tip-top condition. Because as long as you get 5-star reviews, you can keep charging a bit more over time. But as soon as you get negative reviews, your business just drops, right? So that's why we always focus on keeping them in the best condition we can.
Very tricky question, final one. And if you get a construction next door, which stops booking for 2 years, what are you gonna do?
We've had this also, yeah. So actually part of our due diligence is to understand the area. So what's happening? Who owns the properties in the area? What can we expect to happen? But there is no guarantees on the return. So we then obviously, if there is construction, which is inevitable, hopefully now things will slow down, but construction is inevitable. So we put it on the Airbnb listing, all the other OTAs that we work with, just to communicate with the guest. But we have seen property returns drop for some properties when there is construction. But yeah, that's just part and parcel of business.
Will you, and if everyone wants to pull out from that particular property, will you buy back all the tokens?
Yes.
So before you go to my brother Michael, give the mic back to Bonnick. So, Guz, if you could put the camera on our brother. You don't know what I'm going to ask you yet. So this is why I do it. The people that I know around Bali, who's been here for a long time, or like you, Nina, come from Australia, been watching the show, I really appreciate you. I also, like Krishna over here, I want to give people an opportunity to say something because I respect you for showing up despite the weather, despite the rain and so on. So just mention the name of your company and what it does.
Well, we're Exotic Property. It's a premium real estate agency. We're now the oldest, as you can see from my face, on the island, and we've been doing it for a very long time. So we're super critical when we hear all these, 20% ROI and all that crap, because it usually doesn't work. And somebody forgot to tell you, oh, you have to pay taxes. Oh, you're overseas. Oh, it's 20%. And then it's this and that. At the end of the day, it doesn't really work out. So this seems to be a much more legitimate and much more reasonable approach to it. I mean, there are risks, obviously, but it's encouraging that the government is looking at, creating a framework that protects consumers. So interesting stuff.
Thanks, Bonnick. So over to Michael. Now, anyone here who's in real estate, listen to what he's about to say. Another guy I love. There you go, Michael. 3D. What is it about? Come on, brother. Over to you.
No, I'm just asking for Robert now. So good. So Robert, the tokens are issued as a commodity at the moment. Yeah. In the future, we can expect that the tokens must have a security process in the background. So we're talking about KYC, AML, hashing the contract into a blockchain, and so on and so on. How are you preparing that with a user base of 110,000?
So we do KYC already, we do AML, we do politically exposed checks. This has been there from the beginning. Why? Because we've always wanted to become regulated. So we've always built the business with that in mind. On the token side, when I was here back in February, we were not on the blockchain yet. We have migrated since then. But when you're dealing with lots of microtransactions, you can imagine your gas fees are a big challenge of this. So we do a lot of research into this and what makes most sense. But if you go into our app or website, you can actually see there's a blockchain tab under each property. We'll actually have all the information there for you.
Polygon, the chain, correct? So the chain using is Polygon.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Before you go, I'm not going to let you go without doing it. You know that. So Michael's been on the show already, so he's already public knowledge, but please let people know, because you have real estate developers here, and they'll be interested to know about both of the things you do.
Thank you for giving me the chance, Rob. So my company is called 3D Scan ID. We are specializing in digitizing spaces. We're creating digital twins and 3D virtual tours for marketing and sales activities, targeting industries like real estate, hospitality, manufacturing, and construction. And the second brand we're running is called Rumor3D.com, which is a marketplace for real estate listing. We are working together with real estate agents here in Bali, and all of our listings are presented with a 3D virtual tour as well, so people from all around the world can access the property 24/7.
Right. One last thing. What do you do with off-the-plan properties? Because they're also...
Oh, yeah. So we're creating CGI tours. So we're using computer-generated images. And it's basically the same outcome as we do a physical space. But those are generated 3D virtual tours with the help of Autodesk and 3ds Mask. So, yeah.
Great. So the websites, real quick.
Rumor3D.com and 3D Scan ID. Thank you, Rob.
Very welcome. And so just behind you, I think there's a question. Yeah. Also keep in mind, so the CGI, you're going from 2D to 3D. There you go.
Hi, Robert. I think you touched on valuing properties and things going up. But let's say you sell in 4 or 5 years. What happens to the users? Do they have to, obviously they have to liquidate, but do they get any profits or not from the sale?
Yeah, so as a GORO user, you benefit in two ways by investing. One is the monthly paid rental yield and the capital appreciation when the property, or depreciation, when the property is sold in about 5 years from now. There's actually a voting mechanism in place. So once we have identified a potential seller, we will run a vote amongst all the token holders, and they actually get to decide if they want to accept the offer or reject. So it's actually in the user's hands to decide.
Okay, thank you.
Great. So any questions? By the way, my brother who just came with a bald head. Yeah, there you go. Just tap him on the shoulder. Shh. You're my brother. I know that, but your voice carries because your voice is deep and beautiful. Now, any other questions behind? Just raise your hand. Austin, no question. Really? Unbelievable. You already know that. All right, one more question here from Bonnick. So if you have any more questions, remember you're probably in one of three places. Number one, you might be scared to ask a question because maybe you've just arrived and you don't want to be that person who asks a question that we've already dealt with and you might get embarrassed. You could be there. Number two could be you know what your question is, just ask the damn question. And then number three, somewhere in between. But wherever you are, if you have a question, please feel free to raise your hand and ask it. So, Bonnick, we're back to you.
You know, I'm coming back to the same subject, which is management, which is crucial, right? Do you look into standardizing your management operations? So you can look, these are our standards. Our manager is not allowed to earn more than that. And this is our structure. And, you know, to make it as efficient as possible, because that's the big loophole, you know, and people can't see through. Yes, we're trying to get 12%, but then, sorry, it was only 9% because our manager just bought a BMW. And, you know, that's one question. Second question, how did the regulators get their head around the fact that you as a company own a HGB, right? And you're basically inviting not just Indonesians, but also foreigners to participate in an ownership which is sort of linked to the HGB. I mean, I can imagine that this has kept regulators busy, you know. Oh, no, this is not foreigners buying Bali property. You know, we still follow the basic agrarian law, and no. How does that work?
You pass over to Vasily. I'm going to tell you why in a second. Just, yep. Take it. Okay, answer the question, and I'll tell you why after.
On your first question, we've always thought about scaling the business. So we bought 21 properties now. We're hoping to buy another 40, 50 next year alone. So it's all about standardizing. So this comes also back to the SOPs that we're creating. Everything has to be standardized and it has to basically be a bookwork. So anyone that comes into the business reads this and should have a basic understanding of how that specific department should work. But interestingly, the way our management operates is that the management fee is actually variable. It works based on the returns that we pay. So if the property delivers below 10%, we don't take any fee. So it's a tiered system. So again, GORO, which stands for Gotong Royong, which means bringing people together for the greater good, is also deeply ingrained in how the management works. So if our users don't make money, we don't make money.
I forgot about the Gotong Royong. One of my favorite phrases in Indonesian. Man, I forgot about that. Thank you for the reminder.
There was a second question, which was? Remind me, sorry.
The second question is, how did the OGK get their heads around linking foreigners owning through tokenization HGB properties linked to your company, right?
Back to Vasily. Yeah.
It comes back to the 500-page bookwork that we submitted. You just need to be extremely transparent in what you do and just share with them saying, this is how we are structured, this is how we operate, how do you guys look at this? And then obviously they will check with different government departments. So as the land authority, they will check with them, is this legally allowed? So it's like a back and forth with them. So they're very open-minded. They're very interested to learn about different business models. And that has helped us to, fortunately enough, the CEO of the Sandbox, Hassan, he is very optimistic about tokenization. So that's a great plus point.
So a few things. So everybody's here. We're going to have one more question after I do Vasily, and then we're going to have a photo together. You have a question as well? All right, all good. Then we have a photo, then the opportunity to talk to each other. As I said, for those who came in the beginning, the reason why everyone got a chance on a microphone is for this reason. What I've noticed after 451 episodes of doing this, it's a lot, right, is that more often than not, the people that actually you want to meet are in the audience sitting next to you or opposite you. But most of the time, people come for the guest, thinking that that's the connection that they want to create or to nurture. But I've had more than 20 people that I know who have found business partners in the audience, right? Because quite often, the person or company or service that you require next is sitting right next to you. If you think about this, every week we do this. Every week there's a funnel of a couple of, maybe 100,000 plus people that come into it somehow. By the time that funnel collects, what you have is a distilled liquid at the end. That distilled liquid is totally, completely, entirely interested in the topic of that week. Otherwise, they wouldn't show up, right? So therefore, when this distilled liquid of whether it be 20 people or 150 people has been the most we've had, everyone is on the same page. So I really do suggest very strongly that you don't just walk away after this, but the person that you heard something from that tweaked your interest, you have a chat to them. The reason why I said do not say your name is because, number one, you would have forgotten by now anyway. Right? And it's kind of embarrassing when someone tells you their name and you go, I've forgotten your name, right? So you would have forgotten anyway. And number two, it's a way to start the conversation. Right? So you can say something like, hey, loved what you said earlier on. Can you tell me more about that? And by the way, what's your name? Right? So just keep that one in mind. Okay, so you put your hand up. You asked a question. If there's something that you want to say about what you do, please feel free.
Robert, thank you. Thank you for organizing this event. That's been amazing and been here many times. And thank you for bringing great guests. Amazing what you're doing. I've been in Bali not as long as Bonnick, but long enough. So I think he was one of my first partners here, like we met before. So I'm in Bali real estate market since 2009. It's still the same company. We are called Seacrest. So we are riding the wave. And at the moment we specialize in business consulting and like legal consulting. So we help people to do the due diligence and understand everything that's going on behind with their property, with their lands they want to buy, how to do things right, how to make sure not to lose. And I can proudly say we help at very big companies not to lose millions of dollars, like investing in very, very risky assets. And plus, we do real estate sales. We do development by ourselves. We are helping growing our mine and Robert's favorite area of Tabanan. So that's where we build our properties as well. That's what I'm doing. Yeah, thanks again.
Thank you very much indeed. So if you slide that microphone over to our brother over there. So you mentioned Tabanan, just before we get to your question. So for those of you who know, we've been doing this SpeakuP for a long time. It was a passion that became an obsession. I'm very open. I'm obsessed with this and it will never stop. So here's the thing. People over the years have said, listen, you've interviewed half the island, the leaders in 10 different industries. That's great. What are you going to do with that network? Right? What are you going to do with it? Is it just a talk fest or is it going to be action? So part of this is called SpeakuP in action. So Tabanan is a regency here in Bali. I think the second largest or third largest in Bali. 5 years ago, I met the king of Tabanan. 8 years ago, Kerambatan in Tabanan. 8 years ago, we arrived with my wife, who's Indonesian, and our 2 kids from Australia, Sydney. That's where we met. And Tabanan was the first place where we landed. I fell in love with the place. I still do. So now it's returning. So through the king, Erawan, Kerambatan, I became a bridge between foreigners and Balinese culture somehow. And so we've done maybe 30 events over the years, thousands of people. From the tourism minister of Indonesia, Sandiaga Uno. We organized a very special meeting between him and a group of investors here in Bali, in Tabanan. And then the whole village showed up as well, so that was a bit bigger than what we realized. But now what we've done is that we've formalized that into a Tabanan community WhatsApp. It's about 300 people from local government, entrepreneurship, investors, what else? Charities, foundations, and so on. There's three things behind it. Number one is it's about seeing each other. So when foreigners see Indonesians and you start to learn about each other, then there's respect. When there's respect, now you can probably work together. So the simple burning ambition, desire, goal, passion behind that is number one, we see each other. Number two, we learn from each other. And number three, we learn to work together in Tabanan Regency. So I think on Wednesday we're about to sign an MOU with Jatilui, which is a World Heritage location. It's cultural significance. Also won the best tourism village in the world, United Nations Tourism Office. With them, we are helping to support by being a gateway, a vehicle between Indonesians, foreigners, also between smart farming opportunities and so on. So we're helping the future of Jatilui. It's not just us, but we play a little role in that, and that's Speak Up in action. So what Vasily was talking about is that if you have a desire to either look into, to want to get to know Tabanan community, please come and see me afterwards, join that community, but only if you're interested in Tabanan and only if you're interested in following the regulations, the culture in Bali/Tabanan. If you're not, don't join. If you are, happy to have you. Okay, I'll get off my soapbox now. We have one more. Christian will come to you, but he has a microphone. Coming to you, then to you. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Rob, I have a technical and a legal question. The technical one is, do you use classical non-fungible ERC-721 tokens? And if yes, do you emit the same token for each property and update your smart contract, or you emit different token for each property, for each project?
So we create a token for each property.
Okay, sorry, yeah, you got two questions. Okay, all good, please.
So yeah, the second question is we create a specific token for each property, which is fully automated on our backend. So when we launch a new property, it all gets automatically created. The second one, let me get back to you on the exact title of us. It's on my website somewhere.
It's a ERC-721. It's a non-fungible NFT.
I need to check what the exact.
Okay.
I'm not. My co-founder is the technical guy, so he did the.
Okay. And the second question is more legal. What on your knowledge will be the timing for the new regulation from OGK to move from commodity to security, because this is a game changer, no? And how will you? I'm just curious how you will move to this new regulation. How, in your knowledge, it will be?
So like I mentioned just now, crypto was under BOBOP-T, which is the commodity regulator. They recently took over OJK, so they've been transitioning the people into OJK. I would recommend that you read the roadmap that they created, that they released back in June, because it kind of tells you where they want to go in the whole space when it comes to NFT, when it comes to crypto, when it comes to tokenization. So that gives you more information on their view. On the crypto space specifically, it's not necessarily relevant to us because the tokenization for us, we still only accept fiat. We only accept IDR because it's the only legal tender here. So I can't really speak on the crypto space in detail, yeah. But I would recommend you read the roadmap because it'll be in there. Yes.
Thank you, brother.
Hi, my name is Christian. I'm actually my question mostly about like property itself, about like what kind of properties is actually I mean like is it villas or is it apartments, and then also as you know, market in Bali is actually always shifting. Start from Kuta Seminyak become Canggu, and it's always moving towards to that direction. Right now it's moving towards to the Kedungu Seseh. And my point is, I mean, like I understand we want to put everything is it one property each as a token. So what happens if are you going if it like is less popular? Are you going to sell that properties which you already, for example, you have in Kuta, for example, or like Seminyak, and then after that trying to move it, or how's things? Because I'm actually kind of curious on that particular area, because like as I know as well, many big hotels in Kuta where they have 5-star and then but they don't have like the occupancy rate for that is actually pretty low. And in Seminyak as well, some of people who I know as well, they're trying to sell their hotels. So that's kind of concerns of me. Thank you.
Personally, on Seminyak, I don't think Seminyak is going anywhere. It remains very strong. All the big hotels are there. Name any big hotel in the Canggu area. In my opinion, the best restaurants, the best bars, all of the shopping is still down in Seminyak. So I firmly believe that market will continue to boom. I also think eventually, we keep talking about moving up further north, but the infrastructure doesn't really support that move. So I actually think there's also a big potential for Kuta. So as long as we can find a big developer out of Jakarta, one of the conglomerate style families to come in and basically redevelop that, I think there's a lot of potential for this. In terms of the properties that we currently focus on, it's in Seminyak, Canggu, and Ubud. Ideally 4+ bedrooms. We don't really operate in the 1 and 2 bedroom space anymore, and we don't do apartments at all, unless we can buy the whole block. But for now, we focus on the larger properties. Less competition, people book in advance, so there's less last-minute bookings, etc. So it gives us a lot more stability.
Great question. Great. By the way, some really good questions, everybody. Thank you very much. So last question over here, yeah.
Yeah, everybody, I want to say hello. Nice to meet you, to see some people I already know. My name is Ksenia, and I know Robert since more than 1 year already. Yeah, and I work in a local project. It's called Jagat. We have several products. One of them is the wallet that helps kind of legally accept cryptocurrency and convert in rupiah and then pay property with rupiah. And some people already purchased villas like $300,000, for example, with our application. And we are the bridge between crypto and rupiah on a way kind of legal, I would say. So if you want to maybe solve this problem, contact me. A little bit of introduction. And what I wanted to say that our project now took direction to tokenization.
Nice little sell. But I know Senya is fine. But that was good. I like that.
Not a scammer, right?
All good.
Yeah, local project. We are based in Jakarta also. Our office in Jakarta. My boss is Indonesian person. Robert knows Albert very well. So we took direction to tokenizing also, but then we decided we don't want to do our own platform. We want to be the payment system for marketplaces connected with real estate, what is very trendy now, and tokenization platforms. And what we do, we created kind of API product for paying USDT and getting rupiah from your side. That's why I wanted to ask a question, because I arrived late because of crazy traffic today. How do you accept money? Is it just IDR, or what do you do with payment system so far?
Thank you.
Can you repeat, please?
So IDR is the only legal tender here. So that's the only currency we can accept at this point. Obviously, with the adoption of crypto, there's hopefully more opportunities in the future. This bridge, for example, is very interesting. But the government is also heavily scrutinizing this. When the money gets converted and deposited into the bank will start asking questions over time of what's the source of the funds, right? So that's one of the tricky things. When you're a small company, that's no issue. But when you're dealing with tens of thousands of transactions a month, that becomes a bit of an issue. So I would love to learn more about the product actually and see if this is applicable to us.
Yeah, okay, Robert.
Yeah, you've done well. So if you have one more question, that'd be great. And then after that, we'll wrap, but over to you.
Yeah, it's okay if anyone has questions about our company and product. We'll be happy to network today.
Thank you, Senya. Thanks for coming as well. So just as we begin to wrap up now, do you have a question? Because you gave it and you gave it away. I don't know what you wanted.
It's fine, ladies first.
All right, respect.
Just one question. I'm just wondering what the structure of what is it, like a fund structure? Are you structured as like a fund, like a hedge fund? No, okay, like securities and stuff. Okay.
It's a normal PTPMA that we incorporate, and then we tokenize against the properties in that PTPMA.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
It's a good question. We'll pass it. Last question. You have one? Man, we know when you say the word last, everyone in mind is like, I've got to give a question. Okay, please, over to you, madam. You look amazing. Anyway, over to you.
Hello, my name is Shirley. I had a question. As the owner of property,
close to darling.
Yeah, as the owner of property, want to sell before the foreclosure, and is that you take the property without license or must be have with the license like SLF or PBG? Because example, I have a property, I need to save it from the bank foreclosure, maybe it can be tokenized, something like that. But is that have to be have the PBG something?
Yes, or at least there needs to be an application. The application needs to be ongoing, yeah. Because if we run into issues where we bought a green zone or we bought a property without licenses, we'll be in trouble, right? And it's not my money; it's my users' money.
Okay, so have to be 100%.
Close to darling.
So we have to 100% done first.
Yes.
Okay.
Great question. Thank you, my dear.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. If you pass this microphone now, Bonnick has been here the longest, but my God, he's asked the most questions. But it's all good, my brother.
This is the most important question. Nobody asked it. I was waiting.
Thank you.
So, how do you make money?
It's all on our website. We have nothing to hide. You can see
I'm
our
not saying you're hiding anything. I'm just asking a stupid question.
Yeah, no, it's on our
a great
website.
question.
So we mark up the properties by 5% at the time of acquisition. When you go under the financials tab on each property, it will clearly show you. And that number also adds up with the number of tokens that are then created. So that's publicly available. And then on the management side, we also take a management fee there. But as I mentioned, it's tiered based on the income. But we've been very fortunate enough to be backed by people from Collier, Savills, Divvy Homes, from YouTube. We have a list of about 60 investors in the company. So they allow us to run at a loss for now, to hopefully become profitable in the future.
And one more question.
I knew there was one more, by the way. That's why I kept the microphone down here.
No, this is a very selfish question. Tell me why you wouldn't buy a $4 million villa, which is discounted by 50%.
It depends on the returns. If you can give me
There's
good return.
I mean, a $4 million property, like, a big villa, it doesn't have great returns, but it's a great asset which will appreciate over the next 20 years. But your time horizon, as I understand, is 5 years, and then you want to get rid of it?
Yes.
So no way of going into longer terms and longer investments?
Potentially in the future. We're also quite interested to acquire freehold over time as well. But it just depends on the returns. At the end of the day, users come to us for the returns, which happens to come from property. So if that equation doesn't make sense, if the returns are too low, because if you go to a bank like BNC or C-Bank, they give you 7 to 8% on your fixed deposits, right? These are subsidized rates. Over time, they'll drop the rates. But for now, why would they invest in, say, a property that makes 7% if they can get 7% from the bank? So.
Well, because you're thinking about a long-term investment. Why do you invest in the stock market,
Yeah, for sure. But for now, our focus is on that rental yield game. Under promise, over deliver. We advertise with up to 10% returns. We do about 11. So.
I'm doing my very best to close the show, but each time a hand goes up, a smile comes up. You're like, Rob, if you don't let me answer this one question, I'm going to get you afterwards. All right, Vasily, Krishna, with the microphone.
Yeah,
make it quick.
I kept it.
All right.
But I'm very interested to know, like, how do you see, or why do you believe in Bali property market, and how do you see it in a long run, with a number of properties growing, with like a number of developments, especially in where we see it, like it's just there will be another 5,000 rooms coming up on the market for the next like 2-3 years, and that's happening all over. And like, what do makes you believe in Bali, and like how you see the future?
Great question. Hand it to Christian.
I wish I had a magic ball that could tell me what will happen in the next few years. But obviously, there's a lot of new supply coming on the market. Obviously, tourism is also increasing, but not at the same pace. So we do see occupancy rates being under pressure a little bit. We do see pricing per night coming down, especially over this Christmas season. So it's quite interesting to see how that unfolds. I must say, next year is looking surprisingly good. The bookings for January are fantastic for our properties. So that's quite an interesting trend. One of the reasons why we focus on that larger segment of 4, 5, 6 bedroom villas, there aren't as many. A lot of people are building 1-bedroom villas, apartments, 2-bedroom villas. So there's going to be a lot of competition, a lot of oversupply. These people tend to book very last minute on the day itself, where if you look at some of the properties we have bought and we're looking to buy, they already have bookings October, November next year. So that gives us a lot more certainty. I'm also not looking for 20%, by the way. Yeah? I'm looking for 10, 11. That's the space I want to be at in terms of return. So I'd much rather go for a lower risk investment than gambling on making 20%.
Christian.
Actually, it was an observation. I mean, the reason that I started to look into GORO for alternative investment was because C-Bank went from 6-7% now to 3.5%, minus 20% income tax. So that's like 2.8%. BPJS used to offer 7% on an additional money that you put in. Now it's 5%. So that's when GORO becomes quite interesting, because now, you know, I took 10% for granted a long time ago, but now 10% sounds pretty good. So that was an observation, not a question. Sorry.
Brother, thank you. Pass it to Guzman. All right, you're right next to you. Cool. So a few things. There's one last question, by the way, from me. But first, I just want to say, as I mentioned, we're coming to a close. We're going to do 2 things. I love 3s, but it's 2 things. Number 1, we're going to have a photo together. Everybody, somehow we're going to fit us in. Number 2 is that there's an opportunity then for you to speak to people, not only to Rob, but the people that you've heard here today. Because again, there is some really great brains trust present right here. So take advantage of it and make sure you speak to people that you got a feeling that you want to speak to. Okay. So, Tropical Nomad, we've got Guzman, we've got Hadis, and all the Tropical Nomad team. This is a new setup for tonight. It's the first time we've done it. I was a little bit stressed earlier on when I'm going like, tell them to be quiet. Because I'm like that. But you know me, right? It comes from the heart. But just really want to thank you for being flexible enough for us to do this. And I think it's been a great show, great guests. So just thank you. Round of applause for Tropical Nomad, please. Now, round of applause as well for Rob.
Thank you for having me.
Now, last question from me, right? So, after this, just to give you a bit of a pre-frame, if there's anything that you missed or anything that you'd like to say, you're going to get the chance after you answer this question. So, okay. So, one of the things which I get constantly, like a little tap on the shoulder, which everyone here will feel and understand. So we're in this magical island called Bali, right? And even my wife she looks at me sometimes, and she's pretty straight. So if she's watching now, she's probably laughing because she knows what I'm going to say. Michael knows her as well. She just says, you know, that we're killing Bali, right? In many ways. So when I then ask you, saying you have this incredible platform, right, which is doing so much good on one hand, right? I mean, that story about that lady who liquidated all of her earnings to then put a deposit on a home brought tears to my eyes. And I've told you that, and I'm really proud of that for you. Now, on the other hand, we have this real estate beast on the other hand, which is slowly but surely, or quite quickly in certain areas, is just advancing at the rate of knots. So even with Tabanan, right, Tabanan community, part of the 1, 2, 3 is that people that come into it, when they see a Balinese person, they see a local, they see an Indonesian, they see what they're doing, they see what other foreigners are doing in an eco way like what Krishna's doing. And they see that the footprint that they're doing is minimized. They see that what Ronnie's doing, right, with his one, it's a minimal impact as possible to the environment. So you have this tremendous platform, 100,000 plus users. Indonesians really having the opportunity to make money to safeguard their future. Huge. But then how do you safeguard Bali? That's my question.
I'm all for... I'm all for sustainable development. Obviously, a lot of people, including the Indonesians, also benefit from this tourism boom. Yeah, I mean, they're able to sell their land, and there are other ways for them to make money. So I'm all for the growth as long as it's sustainable. So let's make sure that we buy or build proper properties in the right zoning with the right licenses, and let's not build properties that we're just looking to sell and that look terrible in about a year and just have to be knocked down. Or let's redevelop areas. Let's look at existing properties that have been around for many years, and can we just renovate them? I think there's a lot of potential for this.
Thank you. Thank you. Respect. Yeah, round of applause to that. Okay, so next week, well, remember the last question is if anything you'd like to bring up or reiterate that's there, feel free. You've got about a minute to think about it. So you've been watching episode 252, Speak Up Monday. Next week, we have an incredible movement within the blockchain sphere, which is rewriting the way social media is going to be in the future, potentially. They raised $25 million recently. I won't tell you the name of the project. I want you to come and check it out yourself. So next week is a very powerful one as well. So please feel free to come and join us. Remember, we have the Tabanan community WhatsApp, which is about that, those three things, right? Seeing each other, learning from each other, and working together, right? For the betterment of Tabanan, Bali, and Indonesia at large, right? Remember as well that you can join our WhatsApp group, Speak Up Monday. There's a QR code around here somewhere, I think behind this handsome fellow with glasses, right? Just join that group. It's a one-way group only. There's no chat in there. It's just a bulletin letting you know what's coming up the following week and so on. And remember, just be mindful about what you're doing. Developers, listen to this show. Think about Bali as well going forward and some of the points that have been brought up. It would be remiss of me if I didn't bring that up, right? Because I think we all love Bali too. We all want to see it grow in a way that we believe is respectful. Over to you, Rob, for see us out, and thanks again for saying yes.
First of all, thank you very much for having me, and thank you all for coming out here with this weather. I hope you found this useful. You learned something from it. I did say to Robert, I don't want to make this a sales pitch. I want to make this more about the future of tokenization and the possibilities out there. I think we all have a responsibility to think about the future and not create some pump and dump schemes to make some quick money, but let's work together and create a sustainable ecosystem from a property development side as well as from a financial system to help more people invest and get exposure to real estate.
Cool. Thanks, everybody. See you next week.